morning, everybody. Crafting Journey here. That Journey chick on Instagram. Make sure you're checking out my Instagram because I did post yesterday. I don't do it a lot, but I did yesterday. Thank you, Mickey. I got my mystery diamond painting in the mail from Evermoment. Oh my God. It is black outside. We're going to have a really bad storm, and I am expecting the plumber again. Washing machine troubles again. It's not draining. It's not the washing machine, it's the plumbing. So he's supposed to come today. So last night, Mickey warned me. She said, Rebecca, that mystery painting, I don't remember if I told this company that to take the picture off the canvas and the thumbnail. So get somebody. I'm like, who am I going to get? Tootsie? Are Tootsie going to open it for me? So what I did was I took the outer wrapping off of it, and they have a new tube now. It's a darker purple, still has the same bow and the same label, but it's a darker purple and it seems a little sturdier. And then when I opened it, I took all the stuff out. This really cute little orange macaroon was in with all the stuff that they send, and I took what I did was I rolled a canvas so I can figure out where the thumbnail's supposed to be. And then I kind of slid it out very slowly. And when I saw the edge, the teeny tiny edge of the picture, I knew the picture was there. I'm like, darn. So I took my duct tape and cut 2 slices of duct tape and doubled it up. And then what I did, I took it, I slid it out, I wasn't looking, and I put the duct tape over it. And then once I got it out, how they wrap it up, they wrap your canvas with the paperwork and the inventory sheet. So I took that out, did not look at it, crunched it up and threw it away, threw it in the garbage. And then took a pair of scissors and cut out the thumbnail image off the canvas. So I don't know what it is. But I kitted it up, and if you want to see that, I have the film of it. I'm going to fast forward it for you, so you get the really quick version. Just let me give you a little bit of explanation of what I'm doing here. Now, what I like to do is I'll have 2 Harbor Freight containers. I will put all the alphanumeric symbols in one container, and then all of the other crazy symbols in another container. But first I organize the drills in numerical order, because with Evermoment there's lots and lots of bags, so you get the big bags and the little bags. So I organize it all, and then I just sat and I was you'll see me, I'm talking to my friends, I'm checking my messages, because, Crashly's cat's baby had babies, so yesterday. So she's got 4 more new kittens. I'm like, oh my, she's like, more to choose from. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to stick with Stitch. Although one of the new ones is albino. How beautiful. She's gorgeous. So I don't know if I'm going to change my mind or end up with 2 kittens. I don't know. That would be just nuts. Double the pleasure, double the fun, right? So anyway, here's my kitting up video. If you have any questions about anything I've done in this video, if you happen to catch it, or something I'm doing, just leave your questions in the comments. I read every comment, and I'll reply. So here it is. So I hope you enjoyed that little ditty there. I also have a puzzle for you today. So here's a puzzle. See if you can figure out this phrase. Now, I am never smart enough to get these. I don't know why. My brain does not work this way, but if yours does, I would love to see if you know what this phrase is. It's from thisdaytrivia.com. So good luck on that. All right, let's go to, all right, so we're back to Alice Lost. Diamond Part, and I got one of my other pins out because I couldn't find these pins. I didn't know what I did with them. I actually did start the mystery painting. I just wanted to put down a few drills. But yesterday, you know, I sat all day long in the chair at work. I said, I am not taking a nap today. And I didn't. Instead of taking a nap, I took the dog for a walk. And not a long walk. my knees are hurting me. They should, you know, I had my knee partially replaced. It shouldn't hurt. It should be better than it was before, but it hurts. So we didn't go for a long walk, but Tootsie was so excited. So we walked, and then I came back and finished work. But you know, I knocked off work, and then I came in here, and you know, it's the same chair. I bought the same kind of chair for both places. And then I proceeded to sit in this chair for the rest of the day, working on my kitting up, and then I wanted to drop a few drills. But by this time, it's like, you know, 8:30 at night, and the dogs are like, we want to go to bed. So I guess my point is the chair was that comfortable, but then I started getting, you know, I guess from the way I was leaning, I started getting pains through here. One, because I got a big stomach, but two, because I think it's just the way I was sitting. But long hours in the chairs, but I was totally comfortable. Like, I'm super comfortable right now. Yeah, so I'll just diamond paint for the rest of the 30 minutes. How about that? You're like, okay, whatever, Rebecca. Okay, now let's do Judge, Jury, and Journey, because we got a little bit to cover. There were two really interesting witnesses yesterday. The emergency room doctor who worked on George Floyd when the paramedics brought him in, and he was the first witness, and then the second witness was the chief of police of Minneapolis, the top dog. And what he had to say will blow your mind, because I listened to one commentator, you know, who was been a chief of police for 40 years. He says, in 40 years, I have never seen a chief not back up their officers. So this guy threw Sheriff Chauvin under the bus and then backed it up and drove over again. Wow. The defense is going to have a really hard time rehabilitating that testimony. But anyway, let's start with the ER doctor. The ER doctor, Dr. Langenfeld, yes, young guy. So at the time of this event last year, he was the senior resident. So in other words, you know, this was going to be his last year residency, and then he would go out and practice on his own, which is what he's done. He no longer works in Minneapolis. He went back to his home state, and I don't remember where that was. But anyway, so the paramedics bring in George Floyd just before 9 o'clock that night. And he is in full cardiac arrest. So they talked about this, and I had never heard of it, this decision tree called the H's and the T's, which is our common causes of the cardiac rhythm that he was seeing in George Floyd. And the information that, the first thing they do is they take report from the paramedics. And the report was, we found this guy. He was in asystole. We started resuscitation. We got him on the chest compression machine. We got a line. We administered epi, bicarb. We got him to a PEA rhythm, which is pulseless electrical activity, but there was neither rhythm, PEA or asystole, is a shockable rhythm, and then neither rhythm would sustain life. So, and they told him that he was down, he was handcuffed, unresponsive, and we found him with no pulse and immediately threw him into the paramedic. They gave him the story, not the whole story, because they didn't know it. They just picked this guy up and ran with him. So, so they really had no idea what had caused this guy's condition. Am I done with this? No, I'm not. So they had to go through their decision tree. Now, the H's are hypovolemia, which means, was it from blood loss? We know it wasn't from blood loss. Was it hypoxia due to decreased oxygen? Very likely. Acidosis, in other words, the pH in his blood was very low, which is what will happen if you are without oxygen for a long period of time. Was it a potassium issue? Did he have hypo or hyperkalemia? Hypothermia can cause it. Well, we can rule out hypothermia. He wasn't too cold. Toxins can cause it, either poison or drugs. It can be a problem with fluid around the heart. It could be a problem with the lungs, tension pneumothorax. It could be a ruptured plaque from his aorta causing a thrombosis. It could be a pulmonary embolus. So they were thinking all of these things while they're trying to figure out what's going on with this guy. And after ruling out most of the things that I just mentioned, if not all, they even put needles in his chest to make sure there was no air or fluid around his lungs to rule out the tension pneumothorax or the fluid, and nope, that was dry, didn't get anything there. So he was, he said the likely cause of death was asphyxia, decreased oxygen. He could not say whether it was drugs or not because he had been down for so long. The rhythm that you're seeing, PEA and asystole, is not a rhythm he said you would see in a poison or drug overdose. So he did say something interesting, that there's a 10% decrease in survivability for every minute CPR is not administered. So how many minutes went by with the police officers just ignoring him? He went out, he passed out, he went unresponsive, and until they, several minutes went by, 4 or 5 minutes went by before the police actually checked the guy's pulse and got the ambulance to come code 3. They were already in the process of coming code 2 for a bloody mouth. But now the police officers, not Chauvin, but Lang and King, said, no, there's no pulse. But even though they said there's no pulse, nobody started CPR. So, at best, he probably had a 50-60% chance of survivability when the paramedics picked him up. And this is my commentary, my deduction, because it's a 10% decrease in survivability for every minute that they didn't do anything, which is really bad. So he felt like there were no symptoms to suggest that this man had a heart attack. He had no information that would suggest to him that this had been drug related. Because really, this ER doctor had very little information because the paramedics had very little information. Um, uh, he was asked by the defense about the use of Narcan. Now, Narcan is a drug that's been very much discussed of late, because it can reverse a drug overdose if you get to that person quick enough. Um, so, had they believed that this man was, you know, and this is just me talking, I think, if they really thought that George Floyd had overdosed, um, they probably should have administered Narcan. And I mean the police officers, because the police are trained in how to administer Narcan, and they all carry it. I mean, because of the opioid problem in this country, police officers are now trained in how to administer this drug, and they all carry this drug because they're the first ones on the scene. They can administer it right away, and it's a reversal agent, and it really works very, very quickly. Otherwise, the person is just going to stay in that condition until the paramedics arrive, and you remember that survivability decrease thing? Yeah, that's going to be going on. So, nobody, but the doctor did say, no, he did not administer Narcan because by the time he got to the hospital, he was in a heart rhythm that you can't administer Narcan once he's in that heart rhythm. It's not going to do anything. Narcan is for before you get to that heart rhythm. It's, right when it happens, or very close in time to when that person goes unconscious from the drugs. So I thought that was very enlightening testimony. And the guy just kind of acted like he didn't really want to be there. I'm sure he had to travel to get to, to come to testify, and he just didn't look thrilled to be there. So then they put on Chief Arredondo, the chief of police. Now, when the defense, I have to laugh because when the defense or the prosecution announced who their next witness was, I'm like, Chief, are we getting an Indian? My mind went, like, I pictured this guy walking in a big headdress. And then it dawned on me, oh, chief of police. I'm such a crazy person. Yeah, I don't know why my mind went to Indian chief, but yeah, so shows you where my head is at, right? So anyway, it's this very, very intelligent black man. So, I mean, he went up the ranks really, really quickly in this police organization. Like, he has a master's degree in public administration or something like that. But, like, he was a cadet, and then he was a patrolman for 2 years, and then he did this thing for 2 years, and then he was promoted and did this thing for 2 years. And it was like a pattern. Every 2 years, this guy would get promoted and promoted and promoted. Finally, he's the chief of police. And very, very well spoken, very knowledgeable. I was very impressed with him. He talked about, and he's been the chief of police for 3 years. So during the event, he was the chief of police. And he talked a little bit about the actual event. He learned about the event. Someone called him at home, said that this George Floyd was in the hospital. He didn't know him by name at this point, but this man was in the hospital and that he might die. So he gets dressed. He goes to his office, which is at City Hall. And by the time he gets to his office, he finds out that George Floyd has passed away. So he pulls up the footage that's available to him. It's the scene from the camera, the same one that the dispatcher could see. It's it's a police video cam that they have on that particular area. So he had the view like from across the street, and all he could see was the back of the police officers. So he said he watched, he didn't see anything that really alarmed him. Um, but later that night, he gets a call from a citizen who says, "Have you watched the video of your officer killing this man?" And he's like, "What?" And so he watched the what we know now as this viral bystander video for the 17-year-old that she took. She took it and she put it on Facebook, and it did go viral. So he watches this and he is like enraged at what he's seeing. And so then they get into talking about training. And he says that, police techniques have changed over the years, and they're now taught these de-escalation techniques, which is called CIT, Crisis Intervention Training. In one of my lives in the past, I was, my last job as risk manager in Florida, I was also in charge of security. And the first thing I would do is I would have these guys go to these crisis intervention training classes so they could learn de-escalation. So that when they responded to a patient that was upset or enraged or just losing it, they knew how to talk them down. The chief said, it's all about communication and listening. And it really is. I mean, you don't go in there like a bulldozer, guns blazing. You go in and you try to talk to these people because there's some kind of trauma or emotion behind the way they're behaving, and you need to find out what that is and empathize with them. That did not happen in George Floyd's case. Nobody tried to de-escalate this man. None of these officers tried to de-escalate the situation. They do have a de-escalation policy, and one of the other things he mentioned was that they are required to provide medical care until the paramedics arrive, which we also know did not happen. So he went over some various policies of the Minneapolis Police Department. I'm going to turn the page here. Turn the page. It was a long, he went over the Narcan policy. He mentioned that they all carry Narcan. They're all taught use of force. And then they went over what's called the Connor factors. And the Connor factors are factors that came out of this court case that said this is when you should use deadly force, and things that you need to take into account before you use deadly force. You have to pay careful attention to the facts and circumstances surrounding you. In other words, you have to take in the totality of the circumstances. You have to assess the severity of the crime at issue. And he talked about that. The chief said, this was fraud. It was a non-violent felony at best. He says, years ago we came up with an agreement with the jail system that, we weren't going to put everybody in jail. We could give them a notice to appear in court for non-violent crimes. We're not going to fill up the jailhouse with everybody. If they're violent, yes, and it's a violent crime, where they hurt others or they're a threat to others, we'll put them in jail. If it's a violent felony, we'll put him in jail. But, he was passing it was forgery, a fake $20 bill. So you have to take into account the severity of the crime. You have to take into account whether the suspect poses an immediate threat to the safety of the officers and others, and whether he is actually resisting arrest or attempting to evade arrest by flight. And And he said the force has to be reasonable the entire time it's applied. So that means you're constantly reassessing what you're doing. You know, at the time that you applied the force, it may have been necessary, but, you know, 1 minute later, maybe it wasn't necessary. You know, once you've got them on the ground and they're handcuffed and they're no longer resisting, is this force still necessary? So you have to keep reinforcing what you're doing or keep assessing what you're doing. So he did say that when someone's in custody, in other words, this George Floyd was in custody. He wasn't going anywhere. He was handcuffed. He was in custody. Once that happens, the police officers owe him a duty of care, which includes, you know, he says these people have rights. You have to reassess what you're doing with these people, and if they need medical care during your reassessment, you better give it to them. You know, so they went over, you know, that there is a policy about using neck restraint, but the way it's usually done with an arm or a leg, and you use minimal force. Light to moderate pressure was his exact quote. He said, "What I saw Derek Chauvin doing was not that." That he had never seen anyone do that. That is not what they consider the neck restraint, because you can see on Chauvin's face that this was not light to moderate pressure. This was more than that. That he did not follow the de-escalation policy, and he mentioned that what he was doing was not a trained technique. No one is trained to do what he did. He did not, that action is not de-escalation. That action goes against our principles and values. Then he went on to say, it violates the restraint policy. It's not an authorized use of force. Once George Floyd had stopped resisting and verbalizing that he was in distress, it should have stopped. He said, in no way, shape, or form is this our policy, or are we trained? This violated the policy, it violated his training, it violated his ethics, it violated our values, and it violated the rendering aid policy. And this is the guy that fired Derek Chauvin. So now we know that he was not following company policy, but is that against the law? Now we got to find out. You know, yes, he broke company policy, he got fired, but did he break the law? And that will be for the jury to decide. Interesting, huh? There was one more witness yesterday. This was Miss Blackwell. She was a training officer, also very well spoken, very well educated. She actually went through their version of the police academy with Derek Chauvin. She's known him for over 20 years. Now, she did not remark on, you know, whether they had a friendship or anything like that, but she mentioned that, you know, she talked about they have crisis training, crisis intervention training, that they train on excited delirium, they train on how to respond to opiates, how to use the Narcan, they train about positional asphyxia, and she mentioned that knee on the neck is not part of their training. So what they used her for was they given a search warrant to give every piece of paper that has Derek Chauvin's name on it. So in other words, whenever he would go to a training or an in-service, Derek would have to sign that he'd been there. So they asked for all of that. And she says, I've given it to you. Now, I have a feeling defense felt like they didn't get it because I think they wanted to say that Chauvin hadn't gone to all this training, but sh- no side could show, these papers where Chauvin, some of them were there where Chauvin had signed into the training, but the crisis intervention training, which is where you learn the de-escalation, is a 40-hour course initially, and then every year you have to do a 7-hour refresher. And sometimes it's broken up into different classes within that 7 hours, different trainers, and you would have to sign into each one of those. And the defense wanted his signature for each one of those things. And he wanted to know what each one of those trainings was. And she said, I'm giving you all the paperwork. I think she said it was like 30,000 documents or something. I don't know. He probably just hasn't finished going through them all. I don't know. Anyway, so the defense attorney seemed a little frustrated at the end of the day. And wisely so. So this morning, and I hope I'm not missing it. No, it's pretty soon. This morning is a motion hearing, before the trial starts, the motion hearing on this fella that was in the car with George Floyd. The one that I said is, what's his name? Morris Hall. He is incarcerated and he has refused to testify in this case. So this morning, he's got to come before this judge and they're going to find out if he's allowed to do that. Now, I suspect that he is, but there's going to be some discussion about it, and I would like to hear that, like to be a fly on the wall. So I'm going to listen to that, tell you what that's all about tomorrow. Did we talk about what National Day it is? Oh my God, did I skip over National Day? It's National Kilt Day. Who does not love a kilt on a man? Oh my gosh, don't you wonder what's under it? No, it's National Tartan Day, not kilt. But when I think of tartan, I think of a kilt. But this day is to honor Scottish heritage and the important contributions the Scottish people had to the United States. There were 13 governors that initially established the U.S., 9 of which were Scottish. There are 56 signatures on the Declaration of Independence. And they said a third of those were Scottish descent. And of the 43 presidents that have taken office, 33 of those 43 have been of Scottish descent. So, I mean, Scottish people have had a huge influence on the development of this country. So this is a day to kind of recognize that. Go get your DNA tested. See if you really have Scottish heritage. I'm going to do that one of these days. I said I was going to do it, 23andMe or one of those companies, Ancestry.com. I want to see if I'm part of the Scottish. Do I look Scottish today? No. Wow, it's getting dark. It looks like nighttime out there. It's so dark. Okay, so I wanted to tell you this day in history because it's so cool. I know I get excited over the silliest things. So James DeWar, while working at the Continental Baking Company, which later became Hostess, he needed a substitute for a filling in their strawberry shortcake. And there was strawberries are seasonal, so they didn't have strawberries year round. So he needed to find a substitute for the strawberries. Well, he comes up with a cream filling. And boom, we've got Hostess Twinkies. Yum. So that's how the Twinkie was born. He ate 3 Twinkies a day, reportedly, until the day he died. And he was 92 years old when he passed away. That is the secret to longevity. Eating a Hostess Twinkie. Now, originally they had a shelf life of 26 days, but now you can keep your Hostess Twinkies on the shelf for 45 days. What is in those things, my God? So if there's a zombie apocalypse, if you've got some Hosties Twinkies, you're going to survive. They're so good. Oh my God. I love Hostess Twinkies. Who doesn't? Oh my gosh. So, guys, that is the show for today. I've got to go to work. Gotta go to work. Work. Yes, I wore a bra today so I could dance. I am silly. Oh, I don't look forward to the storm, except that if I lose the internet, I can just sit and craft. Yes, because I work from home. Last night my internet went down. Like I was laying in bed knowing I need to get to sleep, but I'm still scrolling around the internet, and all of a sudden I just couldn't go anywhere. Everything was, wouldn't go, just pages weren't loading, and I said, okay, that's my cue to go to sleep. So, guys, have a great Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow in the morning show. I love you all. Bye.